Call to order the Board of Mayor and Aldermen special called work session on this June 17th, 2023. Our first item of business is the FY24 annual budget. This is including the proposed property tax increase, and I'll turn it over to our Finance Director, Jamie Owen.
Yes, ma'am. You received this morning a sheet of paper that has options 1 through 6, and if anyone has any questions, I can go over those, and I'd like to open it up to the board for discussion. If there's one particular that we'd like to start with, I can go over those, or we can start from the one and go through each of those again if we'd like to.
I'm still at option 3 where we were the other night, so I'm the ones that didn't like that, I think need to say where they would like to be to look at.
Same for me.
Same here. I'd like for you to discuss option 4, please.
Push that up a little further. Yeah, there you go.
For option 4 is a 5% across the board raise for all employees with the exception of the planning director and the fire department. The fire department would have a certain scale that they would go by. It has a 35-cent property tax increase, a capital transfer, the same as option 3, which is $248,209. The operating balance would be $238,388, and then the fire hourly would start at $12.64. Then after certifications, it would end at $13.94. A certified annual fireman would be $39,506, and a certified annual police officer's pay would be $39,504. The difference basically between option 3 and 4 is, of course, the 6.5% and the 5.5%. And then when you decrease the 6.5% and the 5.5%, you're decreasing the annual of a police officer. So we would decrease the annual of a fireman to keep those equal. So that would affect your fire scale. And then you would increase the operating because you would have additional funds between option 3 and option 4 because of the decrease in the overall between the 6.5% and the 5%.
And Jamie, for clarity, it's 5%, not 5.5%.
I'm sorry, yes, it's 6.5 and 5.
5%.
Yes.
And Jamie, would you make the point of when I talked to you yesterday on this option that how the overtime can get to where it can get
Yes.
double salary positions of this one?
If we were to do anything different with just a straight across the board 6.5 or 5%, if we were to give any additional to the lower scales, that would cause changes between, I guess you would call it ranks, between supervisors and the ones that they're supervising. So I know that in the past couple of years, I think levels 1 through 4 have received additional increases that supervisors may not have. So that would close those gaps so that when you look through the pay scales, you can see those, that to show through. At some points, you can see that if an employee receives overtime and maybe their supervisor does not receive overtime, it could be where they could supersede their supervisor.
So at 5%, it can be where overtime could jump a rank above them by that. At 6.5, that's not happening.
Well, if we took the difference between a 6.5 and a 5 and gave that to the lower levels, that could happen.
Right, but I know that was mentioned the other night. That's what I wanted to say, 5 and
Yeah,
And-
so we would just need to stay with the straight across the board and not do anything different. I mean, you can do that with 6.5 or 5, as long as you didn't take the difference and just put it to the lower levels. Does that make sense to everybody? So we're okay if we just do a straight across the board for everybody.
So, and that's on option 4, just, we're okay if we just straight across for everyone, just making that point out?
Yes.
Okay.
If, as long as you just did across the board with either one of them, it's okay.
Gotcha.
It's just not choosing one level over another.
Gotcha.
Can you read option 6, go down to 6 for me?
Yeah, I would.
Option 6.
Please.
Okay. Option 6 is basically the same as option 4. However, what it does is reduces the tax increase to 30 cents and reduces our operating from 238,388 to 146,417, and then everything else remains the same.
Bring it up, please.
Okay.
So what you're saying, option 6 is basically almost identical to option 4 with just our fund balance, correct?
Yes.
Okay. See, I mean, option 6, I mean, I'm not saying, we're all going over all some of these options here, but, we compromised over 40 to 35, and now we're down to 30 cents. And I think some people have been wanting, from 20 to 25, but I mean, coming down from 35 to 30, I think meeting in the middle. To me, I mean, it seems legit, but I mean, I'll leave that open for everyone else to discuss. What y'all think?
Go over number 3 again, please.
Number three is, I'll go back up for the audience.
That's across the board.
Number 3 would provide the employees a 6.5 across the board increase, with the firemen staying with the separate pay scale, with the exception of the planning director. It's a 35-cent tax increase. The transfer to the capital would remain the same on all options. Our fund balance would be a positive of 109,860. That would go to operating. The fire hourly scale would start at $12.84. After certifications would go to $14.14. And just as a note, this would be the highest option on the fire scale. A fire certified annual would start, after certifications would be $40,073. And that would basically match a certified police officer's annual pay at $40,068.
Now, we done gone past option 1 and 2 already.
I
We're
can
not
go
talking about
over
1 and
those,
2.
but
Because
only if the-
we're past 1 and 2 already, as far as what I can tell. So the situation we have in reality to deal with is we have a lot of turnover in all departments.
yes, sir.
It's not just police and fire. I think we're down 3 right now. Public Works, we just swore in 3 new firemen here the other night. And what we're doing here, what's going on here is, especially in 2 of the departments, is they have to meet certain certifications. And there's certain guidelines they've got to meet. On the police, I know a little bit more about it. I've heard a little bit more about it. But I know both departments, it's very strict certifications that they have to meet in order to move to be certified, because they have to be certified in whatever they do. I know on the police, if I'm not mistaken, they got to go 12 weeks off-site, Nashville or Maryville or wherever it is that they're sending them now. And they've got to go through all of this certification, and that's costing the city a lot of money. The fire department, is the same way. They go through all of these steps of certification. Even whenever you move on down, or move over to, rather, recreation, public works, We have issues there too, when you have as many as 5 down, and we've had as many as 5 down in Public Works. It creates real issues, and it creates a lot of overtime. In some departments, it helps create a lot of overtime because of that. We just continuously short in different departments. So what we're doing, really what's going on is, especially in the police and fire, what's going on is that they're going to work, if we can get them to come, if we can have enough salary to get them to come. But if they do, they go to work, they come to work, and they spend whatever time they've got to spend in training, which is very rigorous. It's just not a sit behind a computer and do it. They got to physically do all this stuff. And then we get them trained. Once we get them trained, then where we're at is we're in competition with different towns and counties. Some things has been said. Well, we should look at when we look at situations like this, we should look at towns that's got about 7,000 or 8,000 people. Well, here's the problem with that. We do, but here's the problem with that. That's not the towns they're going to. The towns they're going to is Tullahoma. The towns they're going to is Murfreesboro. And the other places they're going to is Madison County, right across the state line. So we're not being competitive enough, even though we're a small town. We're not being competitive enough to hold our employees. I've been told, not by anybody who works for the city, but somebody outside of the city, because I've been very careful about talking to anybody about any of this, but I've been just give different examples. Now, I'm not there, I don't know, there's a town north of us, not too far within driving distance, supposedly on the police side is willing to pay $22 or $23 an hour for an uncertified employee. They're willing to pay $26 for a certified employee. So we've got certified employees right now probably working for less than $20 an hour for sure. Less than $20 an hour for sure. So, and even if we do number 3, which that's where I'm at, number 3, because I think, is that enough for the employees? Probably not. But when you put it on the taxpayer's back, then it probably is. Whenever you look at putting that on the taxpayer's back, it's probably enough for right now anyway. One of the things that's been mentioned through all this, that's too late to do this year. We way past that already. That boat's done sailed. But one of the things that's been mentioned, I think that we need to look at going forward. So I'll just put it in right here at this time right here, because I was going to speak to that at some point. Is about actually what we've been having is, and what we have is the percentage raises. This is what we've had all along. We have percentage raises. If you look at our regular pay scale, this pay scale on 6.5 is about 2 steps, about that what it amounts to. Because normally a 3% raise, now that 3% was set up before inflation got up to whatever it's gone to in the last 2.5, 3 years. I mean, that, of course, it didn't come near keeping up with inflation the last 2 years, and that's what's kind of got us behind. Because we didn't do that in the last couple of years. But whenever you take a look at that, and some of the suggestions that I've heard, even from the community, I've received emails very in depth that I really appreciated. I really did, and I took some of it to heart because I think it makes sense. I think maybe whatever we do this year, I believe we should start sooner rather than later on really doing an in-depth evaluation on every single employee before we get into the next budget year. Because sometimes what I hear is, well, do you have employees maybe that they're not up to par? We could have. You very well could have. But I think I would like for the board to think about moving forward in the next coming year, having some in-depth evaluations to each and every employee. We do the city administrator in-house, but in thinking about that, I'm not talking about internal evaluations. I'm not, there's language, I believe there's language in some of our personnel policies, whatever, maybe about evaluations. Typically what would happen there would be the city administrator would evaluate the department heads would evaluate the employees. I'm a little bit uneasy about that. I think if we were to decide to have a really true evaluation of employees, I think we should have an outside entity that specializes in that to come in, because I can see where things can get kind of sideways doing everything internally, and it puts a lot of pressure on department heads and all. So, but if you have someone outside comes in that specializes in that takes the pressure off of everybody, and I think you come there getting a better resolution. So I think maybe going in before next year's budget, I think we should start in the fall of the year, because these things takes time. I think we really do need to go in that direction. Maybe not get away from percentage raises unless we really need to, but we might have a time coming up next year or the year after, whatever. Next year would be the time really to do it, to get a really good in-depth evaluation of every single employee, and that would eliminate some of the doubts we've had about certain situations. I think that would help eliminate things along that line. The reason I've really been on option 3 all along is basically what that really amounts to. If you look at our pay scale, the way it's set up, that pretty well amounts to just 2 steps. It's pretty well what that amounts to. It is some more for the employees, but, I'd rather it been more, but it's some more. I really believe pushing down to 5% is going to create more issues. I believe at 6.5%. I think that right now, one of our big challenges is the fund balance is in pretty good shape. Fund balance is in good shape. Right now, and we knew this going in, we have a situation in retaining employees. We really do. I think the 6.5% is more fair to the employees across the board. I think it's something that we should be able to live with. As far as the property tax increase, I don't like tax increases either. I've got to pay them. I got to pay the county. I've got to pay the city. At least we're at 35 cents. I mean, that's not good. But when we think about some more tax increases being mentioned without getting too deep into that, then 35 is certainly is more along the lines that we kind of think about, and even though I don't really like doing that, since I've been on the board, we've only had one tax increase about 10 years ago. It was 35 cents. And that's when we built a pool, and the police building was coming up and different things, and it was kind of, set to go to where it needed to go to. I think 5 cents went to the pool, if I remember right. But there's only 2 of us on the board that's been through a tax increase. Only 2 of us have been through it. Because the reason for that is because it's 10 years ago. If we go to the city, if we go 10 years without any tax increase, and we got folks close to us right, that's had 1, 2, probably 2 in that period of time, and I don't know how many more. Maybe some towns around might not have none. I don't know. But the fact that we've been able to go 10 years without a tax increase, because our revenue comes from primarily 2 sources. Most of our revenue comes from sales tax and property tax. We don't have wheel tax. It is painful that we pay wheel tax. I've got 2 vehicles. Probably everybody sitting in here in this room got 1 or 2 vehicles, maybe more. And if we buy our tags here in Lincoln County, we pay wheel tax on our tags. We don't get a dime of that. The city doesn't get any of that. Even though we pay that wheel tax, we don't get any of it. So that restricts us down to primarily 2. We get some in lieu of taxes from utilities, have some, but they're not major. We have to depend on sales, and we have to depend on property taxes. So we're limited on where we can go. 10 years ago, what we tried, and all of the small can certainly remember this, we tried our very best to go to the sales tax. We're allowed by state law to go another 1/4%. We're 250. We're allowed to go 275 or 25 or whatever how you look at it. Anyway, we're allowed to go another 1/4% if the voters votes on it. So what we did 10 years ago, we put out a very aggressive campaign And it was aggressive. And we told the voters, I mean, we made it clear that we can go to the sales tax, city only. Now, whether the county would have come on board later is a different story. If it had, that would have really messed up the equation. But city only sales tax was to go with. We tried that. And we was very clear, if we got to have the revenue. At that time, between 70 and 80% of the sales tax would have come from outside people. It would have come, and it still is. It still is. I don't know if the percentage is the same, but most of our sales tax by far comes from people living outside the city limits, coming in from different Alabama, different places. So the sales tax load is carried by people outside, a lot of it. Property tax is not. It's not. We put an aggressive campaign on, and that failed 60-something percent to 30-something percent. It didn't even come close to passing. We didn't have any choice. We was at a point where we didn't have any choice, and we had to go ahead and do the 35. Right now, after 10 years, in the last 3 years, really being able to use some government funding and some grants we got and all, we've been able to put this off about 3 years. This was coming up about 3 years ago. We've been able to put this off about 3 years. I've been told it would have been better to have made a little bit better explanation to the people. I'm making it right now. I'm making somewhat a better explanation to the people why we are where we are. We're not where we are because we've been wasting a lot of money. I won't say that every dime we've ever spent came out exactly the way we wanted to. Probably didn't. Probably didn't. It's just maybe some choices that was made that wasn't absolutely perfect, but we're humans, we're not perfect. You know, things like this happens, and things don't come through like we hope they're going to come through. But overall, and I'm not just talking about this board, I'm talking about the board that goes back. The boards that's gone back. Well, I don't care who the mayor's was, I don't care who the alderman was, whoever it was. We've been able to operate, we've been able to maintain services. And our fire department and our police department is just as good as they come. You know, they're in all of them as good as they come. They're just as good as the ones in the big towns. Even though we're a small town, they've got to be able to do the same thing that the ones in the big towns does. We've got to be able to do the same thing and maintain the same type of emergency services that Huntsville does, Murfreesboro does. But these are the people that we're trying to commit to that we have to go up against to hold our employees. And excuse me.
Time.
Do we have a time on this?
Yeah.
What's our time?
Well, 10 minutes.
No, that's only decided by the board.
I didn't know we set a time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
I thought
apologize.
we were going by Robert's
Have
rules.
we ever had a time limit in discussion stuff? I don't think so. We need to get through this.
Okay.
We are obligated, I'm sorry, we are obligated to pass a budget here. He's making his explanation and making it well.
Okay, I'm
Hold on
sorry.
just a minute.
I
like to be able to
apologize to the
finish
audience
that.
or whoever's listening. I didn't realize that.
Vice Mayor, I'm not trying to stop you or anything.
Okay.
I just want to say that we need to get down to passing this budget before the fiscal year is up. We need to talk about which two that we like and get it explained to us why we are going that route or not. I'd like to hear about the overtime with this 6.5%. And at any given time, will overtime will not be eliminated at all. And what happens to overtime when the employees, when there's a lot or when there's not, they're not going to reach above their supervisors in any of these. And if they do, it's not going to be constant. Is that correct?
Overtime, we will still, I mean, we could still have overtime with any of these.
Absolutely.
What I was mentioning was if we were, I had heard a question raised that if we possibly take the difference between the savings between the 6.5% and the 5% and apply that to steps maybe 1 through 4, if we did that, it would cause, it could cause some issues in the ranks, I guess, on employees. But overtime, we will still have overtime. I mean, we're gonna have overtime, that's just operating. But as long as we leave the steps and the positions in the ranks that they are, and across the board is okay. But it's when we give increases to certain levels and not across the board is when it could cause issues within departments, if that makes sense.
It does. I'd like to insert that we're getting into the weeds here with
Yes.
personnel issues, and that's not our role.
Yes.
Our role is to pick the best possible budget that we can so that we can operate, so the employees will be taken care of, so that we can look at taxpayer spending and try to go from there. Because we're jumping into Mr. Owens' position, and we don't need to do that.
But I think we're all in consensus, and we've all said it all along, we're all for the frontline people, period. I think we've been battling out, and I'm not saying your job is, no harder, it's not hard, you've worked a lot of hours. I think we all deserve, I think a cost of living rate would be sufficient for, in my side, with me thinking, but for the frontliners, I think they're the most important here. But I mean, no, we can't compete with Huntsville, no, we can't compete with Moore County, we can't compete with these people. It's got bigger, the population's bigger. Compared to Orlando, so I think I had heard, really, maybe we ought to get a theme park here. But we cannot compete with these other counties. We're a small town, but we still got to take care of the frontline people. That's been my consensus the whole time, and that's where I stand. But to get a cost of living across the board for everybody, I'm okay with that. But I'm just not okay with, I think we need to get more look at the frontline people.
I think,
That's just, and that's me, because we've lost a lot of frontline people.
well, that's one of the reasons I liked option 3. It seemed to help everybody the most, and it helped the fire department the most on the pay scale.
Right.
So that's why I like option 3. And I wanted to ask Mr. Hill, did you get information on like the meeting timeline? If we were to change from 35 cents to 30 cents, how will we be able to move forward as far as getting the budget finished?
So the statute that requires publication in the newspaper, of course, it doesn't specifically address what happens if you present one budget and it fails. But I think my interpretation of that statute is that if we're looking at a different option, my belief is that we would need to publish that again in the newspaper. I have asked MCAS to confirm that. I'm sure they've seen this situation before. Vice Mayor, I don't think we've even seen this situation before in the time you've been here, where we've had budget fail, and certainly in the time I've been here. So at this point, I do believe we would have to publish again. If that's correct, I mean, really realistically, we'd be looking at the July regular meeting before I think we could have time to do the publication before the meeting. There's a scenario, if one of the members of the board that voted against the proposal for the last meeting changed his or her mind and decided that option 3 was maybe the best option. I think we could look at possibly renewing the consideration of that same budget proposal without having to do publication. But I do think if we are looking at publication, we're probably realistically looking at the July regular meeting as the first opportunity we would have to take this up. We have looked into what happens if you don't have something passed by the end of the fiscal year, and we do have a 60-day window that we would be permitted to continue on the 2023 budget. That we don't even, I don't think we have to even get approval from the comptroller's office as long as we pass something in that 60-day window. Now, obviously, if we're going outside that, then hopefully we're not working with that. I think, we are required to do a publication again. And again, I think the purpose of the statute is to give the public notice of what we're actually looking to vote on. So if we do have to do publication again, I think just because of the timing and the number of days that publication has to be out before the meeting, so we're looking at the July regular meeting.
So it would have to be published in the paper, which we probably couldn't get in this Tuesday. So it would be the next week. How many days after that?
We have to have 10 days
10 days.
meeting.
But I don't think
Could
that
we
we
get
should
it?
let, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
I was gonna ask Ms. Wanda, what could it get in if we were to do something that I don't know the timeline on getting something in on the paper? Could it get in if something were changed, from what we had, the 35 cents? Could something be published Tuesday if we gave you something today, if something changed?
I couldn't speak fully, but we will do our very best
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
And I don't think we should let the publication dates lock us in on 35 cents. If we have to, ask for the extension and operate 60 days, surely within that 60 days, we could come to a consensus, but I don't think we should make the publication date lock us in, especially if the paper is willing to the best of their ability to help us get this to the public and get it published like that the law says that we have to do. I just really have a problem with option 3. We're going with the highest percentage across the board, and 35 cents we're not even considering. I think we should consider going less on the tax increase when you see with option 6 that, you're still putting money in capital, you're still putting money in the operating, and you're going down a full percentage. I'm for all the employees. I want them to have a fair wage, but we've still got to realize what the tax is going to do to our people, our taxpayers that are paying this. And, it is a hard time. So, and then when you look that we're not doing employee evaluations and you're giving a 6.5% to everybody, whether you're doing the job or you're not doing the job, that is not fair to the people who are coming to work every day and doing a good job. We need employee evaluation, especially on department heads. Department heads definitely need it because they make the higher salaries. So 6.5% on a department head that's not doing their job is not a good idea, in my opinion. And everybody on the board here has, I hope they speak out and speak their opinion. But they're who are leading the other employees to do better. And so, if we're not going to hold their feet to the fire, how are you going to hold any other employee? And as far as competition, we're always going to have competition. If we go up, Huntsville's going to go up. Or Huntsville's going to go up whether we go up or not. Same thing with Murfreesboro. Same thing with Tullahoma. So we have to do what we can afford. So that is my opinion.
Option 6 was something new this morning. That was not in our packet yesterday. Hearing Jamie speak on it, that's back to where I was about 2 meetings ago at 5%. So I'm good with option 6, but I would, if everybody says option 3, I can compromise there.
I think that's where we were all trying to go to is 20, we said 25 to 30 cents, I think, and we got to 35 cents.
I'm good with 6. That's where I was in the beginning at 5%. So, but I can compromise it.
And I'm Jeff, I'm with you. See, so Jamie, just
3 and 4 is, you're going to say the same thing. 6 and 4 is going to be the same thing.
But, so, with option 3 is the 35 cents, and then with the 6, it comes down to 30, but we're still putting the same capital transfer in as option 3. And our fund balance is actually growing from option 3, right? Now, we'll come out with more in our fund balance than we will with option 3, correct?
We will, but what has changed is the employee cost.
The employee cost, okay.
Because instead of 6.5% to the employees, we're only given 5%.
Okay.
Can you explain the difference in the fireman's scale between 3 and 6?
3 and 6, yes. In option 3, a starting firefighter would start out at $12.84, and after certifications, they would end up at $14.14. And then in option 6, they would start out at $12.64, and after certifications, they would end at $13.94. And then in option 3, a certified annual pay is $40,073 for a fireman, and police annual certified would be $40,068. And then with option 6, a certified annual fireman would be $39,506, and a certified annual police officer would be $39,504.
So that's about a difference of $450.
And, yeah.
And that's not, and then that's also just in case they possibly have to do overtime.
Well, this does not include overtime.
Yeah, but yeah, overtime's gonna happen, so it could come up a little bit.
It will be more than this, but
Okay.
this is without overtime.
Well, not really, so.
I mean, the only thing this does include is the fireman, I think it's 9 or 6 hours that we have to pay.
I got it.
That is included in this, but anything they receive over that is not included in these hours.
That looks to be middle of the road with a compromise from both parties. Give a little on the employee side, give a little on the taxpayer side, and that looks to be fair, somewhat, the best you can do. I can get on board with that.
I like 6.
I think option 6 probably be the best one. Everybody's compromising all the way around.
Is everybody on 6? Is that where you're?
No, I'm still on 3. I think we
I'm-
gotta do something.
I'm still on 3, but I
We
mean,
gotta do something, we
majority,
gotta move
well,
on.
Yeah.
We do, I'm on 6.
Looks like me, you got enough to move on.
Okay, so looks like we have,
Well, we gotta make a motion.
is it 3, 4? Yeah, motion to move
Are we
this on.
passing this today?
No, we don't.
No,
we don't have to
Okay,
pass
so
it.
we're not.
We don't vote today, but we'll
We're not
have
making
to,
motions then.
That's right. We
well,
just-
don't you have to move it on for,
To move it forward.
You can move it, but you can move
Just
it on.
ask,
the
I'm
board.
asking for a straw poll to move this
You
forward.
know, we didn't vote, as long as you got enough on board, you got, looks like you got plenty enough.
I know, but do we need the motion to move it on is what
I
I'm
don't
asking.
think we have to have a motion.
Just an agreement.
It's gotta move on
Agreement.
anyway, yeah, it's gotta move on anyway.
Okay.
And I mean, if we have to have extra time, like John said, that's what we have to do. I mean, we have to have extra time, but, that won't be any problem, that'll work out.
Is that, okay, Mr.
I
Hill?
also, like I said, I think we're past the point of crunching numbers. If we come back with one more number, I'm gonna have a heart attack. This is
Well, these
just-
taxpayers are gonna have a heart attack.
This has just gotten bad, this has just gotten, I'm a taxpayer too, but this has just gotten beyond where we need to be. We're at the 11th hour here.
Well, I'm not coming back to anything.
I understand
I'm
what
gonna
you're
leave here, I'm done, I'm gonna leave here, whatever most of the people wants to do, I'm through and I'm ready to move on.
saying. I agree with you. And at this point, these options that are here, down to 6, we need to look and say, this is where we
Well,
are.
you've got the numbers on 6.
Right.
You got the numbers to do, whatever.
That's what I'm getting at,
You
yeah.
can have it, Mayor, but I don't know if you need a motion.
Okay.
We got 2 short, in the work sessions, we can make motions.
Right.
I don't think,
We don't.
in a work session, I don't believe.
Okay.
You just get a consensus to move on and turn it over to whoever's got to do it and they'll move on with it.
Okay, we're moving then to item number 3. This is the revised pay scales. Jamie, this is for you.
What I was gonna do is after we decided on which option that we'd like to move forward with is provide the pay scale that corresponds to this option. I have most of the pay scales for most of these options, but not all of them. So, I can provide that to the board. I'm not sure. I think I have one for option 6, but I am not sure. I'll have to go back and verify that. So I do not have that for this morning.
Well, I'd like everybody to know, option 6 didn't come in till after 3 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not on you. I mean, that's,
So, I will provide that at the next meeting.
I would ask that, and we'll talk about this in November, if we have to go further, I think we're gonna have to go past the, more than likely from what the city attorney said, we might have to go past this deadline on the week. I think we need to get it published, and I think we need to do it right. If it takes longer, then I don't see a problem with it.
And let me, we do not have to get permission from the comptroller as long as we are within
Okay.
the 60-day window.
Yeah, yeah.
If we're passing this at our July meeting and we don't have to get permission.
Yeah, I'd rather see the whole thing republished in the paper and go through the proper timelines instead of trying to rush this and get in, you know, I'd rather, if it goes a little over time, whatever, it's, the world don't come to an end, we'll be fine.
That's why I was asking Mr. Hill on the motion and everything to make sure that this is going to the July board meeting. So we'll move that forward.
I would like to say, before we move on to that, I'd like to caution all of us to be on these salary differences, that is the city administrators and the CFO's responsibility, and for us to sit and pick who needs this and who needs that is beyond us. I just like to make that statement.
Well, I've never even looked at the individuals.
That's what
I've never even paid attention to the individual salaries.
Right,
I've just paid attention to
exactly.
I've never made any comments to any employees about any salaries and all that. That's
Well, it's on here. I mean, it's spelled out on here.
Yes, that's
Where we're doing the
for
exception.
our information, but for us to decide who gets what is
Yeah.
where I'm at. That's what I'm explaining.
Yeah.
What I'm
not sure.
endeavoring to explain is that for us to say this one needs this one and this one needs that, that's the city administrator's position.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about when it's on here.
Yeah, 5% is gonna be 5%, that's what it's gonna be.
Yes, and then what I'm saying is
Yes,
when
sure.
we get down to that 5% and the options that are taken, whatever the city administrator decides between employees, that's what that will be.
So I'm not clear on what you're saying. on
Just
this
like the
one.
last meeting when we had a controversy over one department head versus another, getting this and that, I believe that that's an option. I mean, that is the job of the city administrator, according to the charter.
I agree with that, but it's brought out here. I mean, you're
Yes,
singling
for
out
information.
one.
It is for information.
So if it's brought to the board, can we not discuss that?
We could discuss it, but it's
Okay.
not our decision.
Okay, I
where I'm
don't
going.
think that we were here to make the decision. We just brought a point of order or a point of information for other department heads or other positions. So if we single out one, I don't know
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Singling out
yeah.
different departments is where I'm going with that. That's what I mean. You're
And
absolutely
that's,
right.
okay, and so that's what happened at the last meeting.
We were singling out two departments and pitting against each other.
I don't think
And I'm
anybody's
inserting-
pitting against each
Well,
other.
that's my word.
Okay.
And that's my opinion, that's my perception.
Okay,
So that's where I'm going with that statement, and I want to have it said.
yes, okay. Because if that was my opinion at the last meeting, and I wanted that said, so, you know, it's not fair to single out one person
Exactly.
in the public here like we
Exactly.
did, so. Okay, and we'll move on to the FY '23 year-end budget amendment. Jamie?
This information as well will be handed out at the next meeting. I needed to run the year-end numbers to make sure that we had that budget amendment ready for approval.
Okay. So that will be ready for the July 1 meeting, Christopher. Okay? Is there any other statements, comments, any other business? Nothing is on the agenda, so.
I do, but I think before we leave, I think we need to let everybody know that the city and county is two different things. I know I'm getting a lot of emails and people are getting confused thinking we're with the county.
I am as well.
I think that the public needs to know, we have nothing to do with the county. What the county decides, the county decides. We can't control what the county does. We can only control what we do with y'all's money. But we can't control their, I think, whatever they're doing over there across the street. So let's not get us together and say that we're raising the taxes for the Lincoln County citizens, which we're not. It's the Fayetteville City citizens that we're talking about.
And just so to make sure and we're going in the right direction, everyone knows and we know, we are going to be taking the option 6 version and getting that, you're going to get that done. Thank you so much, Jamie. You have done absolutely amazing. Bless your heart. All right. Guys, I think we did pretty good. I think we all did really good today. So,
45 minutes, I think we're good.
This
Thank everybody
meeting is
so much.
adjourned.